Well, 10 modules later, and we find ourselves here. Hello, everyone. This is Eugene once again. It's nice to see everyone. For today's video, we are going to talk about another social dimension of distance education, which is its intersection with the socioeconomic inequality, aka where is poverty in the picture? So today we shall delve into this complexity of a topic, the intersection of poverty and DE. You know what? It's not actually complex. It's much really simple and direct. The way we are doing this will be a bilateral analysis, which means we will be examining these two distinct yet interconnected perspective, and let's see what we can conclude from it. Let's begin. Now, this is not rocket science. We know being in DE requires certain equipment. For starters, during the pandemic, most of us were forced to be either online or modular learning, right? And let's look at online learning, for example. This requires access to technology and internet, and this is a direct result of, you know, emergency remote learning. We have to be connected virtually, and if you are in the poverty line, you are marginalized. Not being able to access them is a direct result of economic marginalization, because no money means no equipment, means no internet data, and ultimately it means no access to class. And even for modular learners, sometimes the internet is necessary for learning reinforcement. So we have this Times article by De Guzman. It was cited that the Social Weather Station reported the percentage of learners with no devices available for this mode of learning, which is, to make use of technology during the COVID-19, is 40%. And families have to spend more than half of their average, of a Filipino monthly income to purchase just a smartphone. And then there's this news article by Beltran in 2021, where it details how certain family opted for their daughter to have modular learning due to unavailability of wireless internet, and they only have one smartphone for the entire, siblings. However, in their experience, modules stopped being printed, according to their experience, and they had to access the lesson through Messenger, which was computed to be 500 pesos added expenses per week. How about if you go beyond COVID-19? I mean, we know this is not entirely the entirety of distance education, right? D is just more than modular or online learning, or even in some other forms of learning implemented during those times. Now, there are DE without using technology. We call it distance learning without technology. And there are a lot of ways this can be implemented. So, a particular person could do this one. However, I don't think it's enough to not use technology, even though it's not online technology, even though it's not distance education, even like education as a whole. According to Blagg and Lotmer, they stated verbatimly that students without internet or computer access are already behind academically. So let's unpack this very clearly. Students from impoverished backgrounds might have gaps in foundational education due to poor, inconsistent schooling. This can affect their readiness to engage with DE, as they may lack basic skills in areas like reading, writing, or even basic arithmetic or mathematics, which are very crucial for self-directed learning. So, according to an article by the University of Waterloo, the first step to successful self-directed learning is always an assessment of the current situation, which involves their study habits, a family situation, and support network for students. Well, if you take a look at these things, these are something tied to a family's economic status, right? A good assessment result for this would indicate that they've privileged for readiness to learn. And this means that those in the marginalized might not have the most ideal condition to do so. So poverty could be tied to the readiness to study. So, do you say that DE is considered an elitist form of education? I don't really think so. DE is just another form of education that students in poverty line could not maximize as much. Just like any other forms of education, whether it's traditional or non-traditional. But one thing we could definitely say about DE is that it happens to have a lot of opportunities for those in poverty line. Now, let's talk about this. We remember there are kids in remote areas that cross rivers just to attend schools, right? I mean, there are a lot of news, local and international news reporting this, like NBC News and New York Daily News. This is easily mitigated if schools are built near them, or if they could have another way to access school or attend school, which obviously could be solved by distance education. In a way, then becomes an opportunity for access to education if implemented properly and if students are given proper support. This could really be an avenue for students to attend school all the way from home without putting their lives at risk. But so, in a nutshell, DE could be a way to achieve targets of the UN's SDG goals, especially number 4, quality education, which is basically about two things: inclusivity and equality in education. We have explored in Module 1 that DE could purely be asynchronous, and learners could utilize their time to be able to accomplish tasks on their own. This might not be applicable to all working individuals, but DE could be a choice or an opportunity for them to jump into accessing learning or education as long as the characteristics of learners are well established by the individual, which we learned a lot in different subsystems of education of DE. Now, Kamal Deep wrote an article about DE's benefits to working professionals, and it specified how DE can be particularly designed to address the needs of working individuals, especially with its increased flexibility, accessibility, and it could also offer a lot of variety. Now, you might ask, how then would they be able to access DE in the first place if DE is even harder to maximize given the condition of poverty? Well, that's why we are doing this bilateral analysis, exploring the irony behind DE, bridging the gap in education, but it also shows that the bridge becomes inaccessible for the poor. That's something to ponder on. And we are the future of DE in this country. And, trying to understand the social dimension, our country's context, everything that all the forces that come into play with this circumstance. Not all learners are the same phased, and it's really an important lens to consider. I'm talking about socioeconomic pacing. After all, education, regardless of its tradition, if it's traditional or not, is still a privilege. But for us as DE students, as those who are pioneering DE as part of their academic pursuits, let's continue to innovate different ways DE could be, so that it would be equitable and inclusive. And given all of these, here are my two issues. Number one, how do you think it's possible to design a DE program or model without the use of technology so that we can teach poor kids how to read and write, knowing these basic skills are needed for kids to be able to be a good self-directed learner? Or do you think that's possible? And second, with our current tides right now, do you think DE is gearing towards an inclusive form of education, or is it leading towards an elitist form that only the privileged could maximize? Why? And that sums up everything we have for this bilateral analysis. Thank you so much for watching and for learning alongside with you. Happy holidays, everyone. I hope we get through this together and we grow to become intentional DE transformers full of inclusivity and equitability in our minds. Bye.